Hey guys, welcome to Farm Charm Chic. I'm Emily. Today's episode is a mega video of 30 farmhouse DIYs that I have compiled together for you. It is chock full of farmhouse inspiration. If you like crafting, dupes, DIYs, hacks, thrift flips, or just creating in general, I would love if you would consider subscribing. But sit back, relax, enjoy, and let's watch these DIYs. For this project, I am using a couple of square dowels that you can get at Hobby Lobby. I'm showing you here some of these came from Home Depot, Lowe's, anywhere you can get them. And I will put all of my measurements and what I cut them to down in my description box. And so just keep that in mind that I will show you there all the different pieces that I had, but I will list them all out for you in the description box so you'll know exactly how to cut them and how many you need to do. Every once in a while, as a crafter, you make a project that you absolutely fall in love with and you're like, this is my favorite project ever. This one is right up there with all of my favorites. I love how this turns out. I'm making a cute little bench that I have seen kind of popping up in my Instagram feed that people have used kind of as a different style of riser or tiered tray type thing. And that's what I'm going to create. So I am taking these two pieces here and I am taking these little shorter pieces. It's really hard to kind of understand at this point right now what it's looking like or how it's working until I show you, and then you'll go, aha, so I promise. So I just kind of marked about 1.5 inches up from the base of those two blocks to glue my little short pieces to. Right now I'm making like the support for the chair, so you'll be able to tell in just a moment. And then on the other end, I'm just gluing those right up against the end. So just take note of how I'm doing this. It's kind of hard to explain where you'll see exactly what I mean here. So this is where once these have dried a little bit with my wood glue, you can kind of see here when I put them there, it's starting to kind of look like the sides of a chair or a bench. Hopefully that makes sense to you. And then I'm just going to glue these onto both sides. So it's going to look maybe like the number 6 or something like that here. That's the best way that I can kind of explain it there, or a B or something like that. And I just kind of use my clamps until it gets kind of a good hold there. And then I'm just gluing that other piece together. And then here they kind of stand up. So hopefully you can see now and you go, oh, okay, I totally get it, because this is where we are here. So this is really, I'm doing that little support beam between the two sides of our bench. This is what is going to hold them together besides the slats that will sit as the backrest and the seat rest on there. And so I'm just kind of eyeballing that into the center. This is very farmhouse. It doesn't have to be super exact. So don't worry. You can kind of, if you look at my height, I did this 12 inches high. And if you're like, I don't want it that tall, you don't have to do it that tall. And these are just paint sticks, the 5-gallon paint sticks from Lowe's or Home Depot or wherever you get your paint sticks. And I taped them all together to cut them. And you can just cut them with a miter box saw that you have, like a hand saw. You can have like I use my power miter saw that I have, and I'm cutting those down. I cut those down to 11 inches. Again, I will have all of my measurements listed down in the description box in case you want to recreate this. But I don't use any nails or anything. I just use hot glue and wood glue, and hot glue just kind of gives it that short-term hold, and that wood glue dries for that long-term hold. And guys, this is so sturdy, like it really is. And you can see that I left just a little bit of space between the slats on the backrest and the seat rest there. And then I am just taking some antiquing wax and I am going over this. Now at first I started doing this with a baby wipe, but after I had turned my camera off because you didn't want to see like 20 minutes of me staining this, I do end up getting a brush, and I will brush it all on and then wipe it off with the baby wipe. Since there's so much surface area to cover and in between the little slats and everything, that's what ended up working best for me. And you can stain this in whatever color you wanted to. I just used the antiquing wax from Waverly. To brighten it up a bit, I just dry brush a little bit, and by little I mean just the littlest amount of white chalk paint all over it, just to brighten it up. I just think that when you go along the edges and everything, it kind of gives a little bit of definition to it, and I personally really like the way that looks, so completely optional to what you like. And I just go around all of the edges here. Hopefully you can see by the pieces here that there's not a lot of base pieces. From start to finish, this took me less than 40 minutes, and that's with staining and everything and doing my wood cuts and everything. It was a very quick project. I love how it turns out, and I am so excited in the final reveal to show you how I styled it. I love this. I picked this sign up at a garage sale last summer, and I absolutely love the little faux shiplap slats that are in there. Now this sign is cute the way that it is, but those colors do not match my house. They're kind of a little dark and drab for the fall colors that I do. So I'm excited to brighten this up and make it every day. So I take it out to my garage and I just sand it down really good with my electric sander so those letters aren't going to be peeking through the paint. And then I'm just using my little fingernail file here to do a little touch-up sanding if there were any areas that I needed to focus on, or once I got it under better light, I could kind of see some areas I needed to sand a little better. Then I just take a baby wipe and make sure that all of that grit and everything from sanding, all the dust, is totally off of it before I start painting it. I really like the black color that is on this frame, and it makes it so simple to leave it that color, and it really works with the project that I'm doing. So I just tape it off so I won't get any paint splatter or anything on that. And then I just take some chalk paint, and this is where you can customize it to your own decor. I really like the white shiplap look, and so I'm just painting white chalk paint over these slats here. I do one good coat, let it dry, and then go back over and do a second. You can do however many coats it would take to cover your project. Just know that when you're using white paint, you can kind of see my first coat there is not super, like, doesn't have a lot of coverage, so I'm just using my heat tool there to kind of dry that quickly so I can kind of move through this. The second coat has a lot better coverage since it is that farmhouse style and it is rustic. We want it to look a little bit aged. It's okay if you can see a little of that original base coming through. Now I'm just going to remove the frame to reveal that black portion of the frame, and I will go through and sand all of the edges and the corners to make it look even more distressed. It was already beat up kind of a little bit, so I decided just to embrace that since it is farmhouse, and we're just going to sand it a little bit more and make it a little bit more aged. Now, can you see those slats where the shiplap is? You can see the paint pooling there. I really liked how that looked. It just kind of gave it more of that aged look. Now, I got this frame at Hobby Lobby. It was on their clearance, so it was about $5, it looks like there, and I loved how this looked. It was the perfect size for this. You could do whatever shape of wreath you have, whatever color, make it for Christmas time, fall time. You can change this out however you would like to do that. I have this thick burlap ribbon, and so I am just going to make this hang from the burlap ribbon. So I just cut a length of that, and then I am just lining the edges of that ribbon up. Now, I really wanted this to be sturdy hanging from this. I didn't want it to go over the top of the frame to the back. I kind of wanted to put it underneath, if that makes sense. So I just kind of pry that shiplap a little bit until it opens up there. And then I'm just going to feed that burlap ribbon through over to the back edge. Once I have that through and I have my slat pressed back in place, I am just going to cut that ribbon off. You know, it only needs to be over just a little bit. You don't need a lot hanging there. And then I'm just going to use some hot glue to kind of give that a little bit of extra security. I glue the base portion and then the middle, and I just press that down until it's dry. Now, it does have these little sawtooth hangers. I do take one of those off. I use a hammer to place it on the back there so I can hang it the correct direction. However you would like to hang it is up to you, or you can even just lay it, like stand it up against something. So now I just had to decide if I wanted the wreath to go in front of the burlap ribbon or behind. I chose to leave it behind. That's a matter of personal preference. I am so pleased with how this came out. I absolutely love this. It is perfect for everyday farmhouse. I can even change the wreath out for different seasons. Next time you're at your thrift store or a garage sale, look for these staple pieces like this that maybe you don't love the design and you saw how easy it was to change and make it super neutral. If you have a stash or pick up these little pallets from Dollar Tree's crafting area and wonder what to do with them, I have the best DIY for you here. This is by far my favorite Dollar Tree DIY ever. So I am using 9 of these and I'm going to make a tray with them. So I'm just using a combination of wood glue and super glue, just the super glue and wood glue I got from Dollar Tree. And I'm just kind of alternating. The super glue gives it more of a like quick hold, if that makes sense here, while it lets the wood glue dry. So that's why I decided to use that. I don't love using hot glue in instances like this where I need the pieces to fit together tight, because I feel like sometimes the hot glue will dry in between and they'll kind of be like a space or something. So I'm just using these and I glue 3 together end to end, and then I do that for each of my 3 rows. So that will take care of all 9 of my little pallets here. And so as you can see, I have all 3 rows done here. And then I'm just using to kind of space my wood glue out there and kind of fill in the gaps with the super glue. And I will glue these 3 rows together using the same method here. To get these to fit together very securely, I am using some clamps. You can sit and hold them for that super glue to dry, but I found that the clamps worked the best. These 4 wooden signs are from Dollar Tree also, and I'm using them for the edges of our tray. And I'm just showing you here that this bottom is very secure. It is not going to fall apart. So now I just need to measure the edges so I know exactly where to mark on all of my signs to cut. Now you can use a handsaw or a miter saw, whatever you use to cut. And then I did drill a couple of holes in these. And as you can see, I ended up having to use a little bit of spackling because it's like a compressed wood. It's not like solid wood, if that makes sense. And so it kind of tore a little bit when my drill went through. So just a little spackling over that. Now I just use my super glue and my wood glue to glue those sides down first. And then I am going to glue these other edges, the front and back in. And if you saw me there, I made sure to put super glues on the edge of those pieces as well as the bottom part, so that way all of my surfaces that are touching are well glued together. Now at first I was just going to do one base coat of chalk paint because all of those signs are different colors, and I was kind of using this as a primer coat, and then I was going to spray paint it. I ended up just doing the whole thing with chalk paint in my studio, and I really do like how it turned out. But just know that you have to go in between each of these palettes with a little detail brush to make sure that those are all painted in between. So it takes a little bit of love and effort and time here. Spray paint may do a little bit quicker of a job for you, but I'm just letting you know how it was. But I'm so pleased with how this came out. I'm so happy that I did take the time to do this. So just that little detail brush in between each of those. Now I do decide to distress mine because you guys know I love that. That is totally my style. And when I've seen these in the store, they have had kind of that distressed finish. So I'm just using some antiquing wax on a chip brush. I will dip my antiquing wax in, and then I will wipe it off a little bit on a paper towel, and then just lightly brush over the areas there. So I did the inside of my tray first, and then I go through on all of the edges and make sure that they're well covered as well. You just want to make sure that if you're doing a distressing finish like this, you want to make sure all of the areas are covered. So the inside of the tray, the outsides of the tray, outside sides, if that makes sense here. And then I kind of go along the edges like I'm doing right here. I feel that that gives a little bit of definition to the edges as well and really helps it to look really good. And I just love how it turns out. Now I'm using a little bit of the rope from Dollar Tree, and I am just going to put a little painter's tape on the edge so I can feed it through where I drilled my hole. If you didn't want to drill holes on here, you could easily super glue some like door handles or something onto the edge of this. If you don't have like the tools or don't feel comfortable using a drill or anything like that, just go to the craft store or hardware store and find a couple of drawer pulls and just use some super glue on the sides. Would work easily as well. But I just tie the rope in knots on either end there, and then just pull it tight against, as you saw, I pulled it through to help that knot get really tight, and then just cut off the excess. And then I just repeat the same process on the other side. After I got my handles on and picked this tray up, I was instantly in love. I think this is going to be so fun to style. I love how this turns out. I think that it is such a solid piece, you guys. It's not flimsy at all. And I've seen these in different craft stores. I mean, look how cute it is standing up like this. Like, I just think it is so cute. But I've seen these in craft stores that go for like lots more than it cost me to make this. And it took a little bit of time, but it is a piece that is going to be a staple for me for years to come. And I am so excited to get to style it in different ways and come up with different places to put it. I would love to know down in the comments what you guys think of this one and if this is something that you would attempt. I love the look of this little frosted glass lantern from Kirkland's and thought I could easily recreate something similar with this glass little jar that I found at Dollar Tree. Now this does have this little twine around the top of it, and so I'm going to leave that rather than try to find anything, since it's all kind of like a one-stop shop thing with this, if that makes sense. So I'm just using my little heat tool to remove that sticker from the bottom, and then I'm just going to wipe it off and get it all cleaned up. I will also take this little twine off now because I'm going to frost the glass on this little lantern. I will be replacing that once this process is done. So there is a little bit of glue on the sides of the lip of the jar there, so I just use my heat tool to get that completely cleaned off, so that way the glass is completely clean. To frost this, I'm just using this Rust-Oleum frosted glass spray. I have never used this before, so this was the first time, and I absolutely love the process. I just took this out into my little spray paint studio in my garage. It's just a giant box that I have so it doesn't get all over everything. And I just give this about 3 really light coats. I just go in just a typical spray paint motion, you know, just little small bursts, stay about 12 inches away. Let it thoroughly dry in between each layer. This is so satiny. The finish is so beautiful It is so smooth, and I love how this turns out. This is definitely a hit, and I will be using this frosted glass from Rust-Oleum much more often. This is not sponsored or anything by them. I just ended up really liking this product. So I'm just going to replace this little twine back on here, and I am going to have that little handle, get that put into place as well. So I just use a little bit of glue. That's how it was originally affixed to the jar. So after I kind of get all of my measurements down here, or kind of, I don't really measure anything, you guys know that. I just kind of eyeball it, and then I'm just going to hot glue where I want the pieces to be, and then I will be able to have that little handle to hang my lantern from. After I have glued into place where my little handle is, I'm just going to wrap around the rest of that twine, and I will just kind of tuck the pieces under and glue that. You can kind of watch how I do that here if you decide to recreate this. Now, if you want to go for the same vibe and you don't want to spray paint it, you could easily just go look for this lantern at Dollar Tree. It would be super cute. Of course, I found that on Kirkland's, and then I saw this at Dollar Tree and thought, oh my gosh, this is the perfect opportunity to try and frost glass, since I've never actually done that, and I just love how it turns out. But you can kind of see I'm just going to tuck that back under. Now, I could have easily gone and thought of something else to do to make more of a wood type of handle on this, but I thought it was just easier to do it this way, and I got the same feel and the same look from this. So now I'm just going to take a couple of these little tea lights. These also came from Dollar Tree. You just pull the little tab out and they light up, and I end up putting 2 of them in there to add a little bit more light. Here's a quick look at our inspiration piece that was from Kirkland's, and then here is the piece that I recreated. I really think this turned out great. You're going to get that same feel and that same vibe from this lantern. I love how that frosted spray paint turned out, and this really was just a couple of dollars, which is a fraction of the price from the original Kirkland's version. What do you guys think of this? Do you like how it turned out? Would you try that frosted glass after seeing this? I loved how it turned out. Do you guys remember when I made this Gothic window? It was about a year ago when I made it. I'll leave a link to the video down in my description box, but I wanted to make one that was a little bit of a different shape and had a little bit of a different size to it and a different design in it. So that's what I'm going to tackle today. I found an image on Canva. You can find them on Google Images. You can purchase window designs on Etsy, and I just printed it out across multiple pages. I used an app called Split Print on my MacBook, and it does cost about $5 for the app, but you get to do as many times as you would like to, as many different designs like this. Whereas if I was to pay for an engineering print, I would have to pay every time that I did it. So I thought it was a decent investment. So I just cut my design out on the, like a right angle. You can see kind of on the side and the bottom of my window, and I'm just using some Gorilla Spray adhesive. Be very careful with this stuff. It does get to be very sticky. I just put a light coat here, and then I will place the straight edge of the side of the window and of the base of the window against, so that way I know that those 2 sides right there are going to be completely straight. I just rub out any air pockets, get that adhered really well, and then just using my drill with a large enough drill bit that my jigsaw blade will fit through, I just drill what are called pilot holes in each of like the window openings. So you can see how each of those window areas have one there. So I can stick that blade of my jigsaw down through there. Now, if you've never used a jigsaw before, never fear. I'm here to hopefully calm your fears a little bit. That window that you saw at the beginning of my video was the very first time I had ever used a jigsaw. They are very easy to use. I was really nervous the first time I used one that it was going to be like more than I could handle. It was going to go so fast and I was not going to be in control. And that couldn't be further from the truth. You have complete control. You have a little trigger that you'll press with your finger on the handle, and you get to control how fast you go or how slow that you go. So it is very easy. You get the hang of it very, very quickly. Once I started to use my jigsaw, literally my creating world exploded with possibilities of different things that I could do. So if you have one at your home, or if you have thought about purchasing one before, this one is one that plugs in. You can see I have a cord on it. I think I paid about $60 for it. So it is a little bit of an investment. They do have lesser price models, but I was given the advice to spend a little bit extra for a little bit nicer one because it is a little smoother. So I can't tell you what the other ones feel like, but this one is really nice and it is very easy to use. I always wear my safety glasses when using any of my power tools. I do, however, like to wear some earplugs when I am doing my jigsaw. This project from beginning to totally the end probably took about an hour and a half, and that's with painting it and everything. So the cutting out process took maybe like 45 minutes or so, not super long. Once you get going, it moves fairly quickly. You can just see that you have to stick your blade in those pilot holes and kind of work your way up to the lines on the window there. And my window, you can see the frame has that little like area that, like, I didn't cut that little white area out in my frame. I decided to have a thick frame, so I'm just cutting along the outside of it. So I'm just going up around the exterior of my window right now, and then you'll be able to see that as I go back up on this other side that I'm just holding on to the window with my other hand, so that way when I make the last cut and it kind of breaks free, you'll be able to see here in just a moment, it doesn't fall on the ground and break or anything. I'm just holding on to it, so I will be able to catch that. So you'll see here as I get to that point, the window comes loose and I'm able to just have that with my hand. And so easy. Now when you have your jigsaw, it's got that trigger on it. So when you're pushing it, it goes, and as soon as you let go, your jigsaw stops. So you have total control over that. So now I'm just kind of peeling off this paper. If you need to use like a wet sponge or anything or sand it off, you can. Now when you first cut it out, you're like, this looks kind of ugly. Like the cuts are not super straight, but that's what you want. You want this window to look like it was carved out of wood. So you're just going to soften all of those cuts with a sander. I recommend using an electric sander on this. You could use a block sander, but it would take a lot of time. But I'm just going around all of the edges, kind of rounding them off a little bit. Again, we want this window to look like it was carved out of wood and maybe has just sat around and been aged for a long time. So I sand both sides of it. Every little area that was cut with the jigsaw, I sand. And then I just take this into my studio and I'm just going to give it a couple of coats of white chalk paint. This is the fun part because you can tailor this to what your decor needs are or how you want to decorate it. You'll just do front and back, and then you have to remember to go inside all of those little areas as well. So now I'm going to make just a little window seal. So I am just taking one of the 5-gallon paint stir sticks from the hardware store and I'm just marking it off where I want. I'm just using my little miter box there to cut that off with, and then I'm just sanding the edges on it so it matches, and I put some wood glue along the base of that. Now I had not painted the base of that, so it's like, you know, the bare wood touching bare wood, and I'm just clamping that as I go through and distress this. So just using, I'm a big fan of fingernail files because of the detail that they can, little spaces they can get into. So whatever you use to sand with, I just go around all of the edges. It takes a couple of minutes to do this, but it's just going to knock some of the paint off just to make it look aged, because that is what we're going for. And then using some mineral paint, which is very close to that original color of the MDF board that is sticking through there, you'll just go ahead and dry brush it on to kind of give a little bit more distress. Now you could skip sanding completely and use that mineral paint if you would like to. So I have this cute little wreath, and this is what I intended to do with this window, is I wanted to add a little bit of greenery onto my wall, but I wanted a cute little design behind it. So I just took this wreath and I fed through some twine on there and just tie that onto the window itself. When I hang this, I will just stick a couple of nails where the little crossbars are at the top of my window, so it will rest on those, but you could easily add hardware onto the back. I would love to know what your guys' thoughts on this window is. I absolutely love them. I love making them. It's such a fun project. It is a great beginner's project for a jigsaw. Find someone that knows how to use power tools if you're kind of scared to use them, and have them kind of help you. It only takes 1 or 2 times of using them with someone there for you to get that confidence and be able to make these projects. But I'm so excited to hang this, and I absolutely loved how it turned out. It would even be cute to just have sitting like this, resting against something. You wouldn't even have to hang it. You can find these little tags, I feel like pretty much at Christmas time is a guarantee, but you're starting to see them for a lot more holidays or different things at Dollar General or Dollar Tree, Walmart, places like that. So this is just one left over from Christmas time, and look, this paper just ended up peeling off there. I didn't have to spray water on it or anything. That was such a fluke. That never happens. So I'm just taking it and I'm going to cover it in completely white chalk paint. Again, the colors are completely customizable to what you would like to do for your home, but I just go ahead and cover front and back, and then I use some painter's tape to do a little bit of a ticking stripe on here. So I just do my wide stripe first, and then rather than doing the littler stripes on either side, I decide to do 2 little ones along the base. When I do my stripes like this, I like to pounce my paint on with a little amount to seal that edge, and then I'll peel the paper off. This helps to kind of seal everything in so you don't have a lot of bleed through. Now I did have a little bit, you can see a little boo-boo on the back there that I needed to, or what, I don't know if it was the back or the front, but I go back in with some chalk paint and cover that right up. So I do sand it down to kind of have it have that little weathered look, and I go around all of the edges as well. That is personal preference, but if you've watched me ever before, you know that I love to distress things. I am very impressed with the rub-on transfers from Dollar Tree. You can see how easy this is. You just cut it out, place it on your surface, and then you rub it, and it just transfers from that backing onto your surface there. And then I just cut the word gather out on my cutting machine. That would be completely optional. Again, there's different ways you can do this, either with rub-on transfer words or water slide decal paper. But I'm just using my chip brush here to kind of go over with a little bit of dry brushing to kind of age it. It has a little bit of white chalk paint left in it. And now I'm just going to make a little string of beads here, and so I'm just doing a couple of sizes here, and I'll just kind of alternate every few beads. I'll do a bigger bead, and then I will just tie that off on the end. I love using little tags like this for tiered trays and things, and I'm so excited to show you what I have in store for how I'm going to display this one. To make the tassel, I just wrapped some jute twine around a little square piece of wood that I had about 20 times or so till I had the desired thickness. And then I am just tying it off at the top and putting it onto the end of that garland. And that's what the start of my tassel will be. And then I just go tie it off, you know, maybe like a fourth of the way down to kind of make, I'm not really sure what that top loop of the tassel is called. If anybody knows, please let me know. But I will just tie that off, and then I will wrap the twine around it several times to kind of make it have that little look of a tassel, I guess. And I just tie that off, and then I will go ahead, and it is super fun to kind of cut. It's kind of satisfying feeling when you cut the end of this tassel. You'll stick your scissors through the loops, and you'll cut those all there. At least that's how I do it. And then you just kind of put them all straight, and then you're just going to cut them all off so they are the same length. I guess you could just cut them straight off to begin with rather than in the middle, but that's how I do it. I think this is the perfect piece for everyday farmhouse decor. I love how this turned out. I think it's absolutely beautiful. I got this little bucket at a yard sale last summer, and I've been waiting for a wonderful project to use it with, and I'm so excited with how this turns out. Green is not my color, so I am going to spray paint it white. You can use one of these little buckets from Dollar Tree if you'd like. It does have the raised letters, so just know that. So after I wipe this down, I will just spray paint it with white, and I wanted to do, at Hobby Lobby, I've seen some items that say Farmhouse Local on them, so I just went into Google Images and found an image that I like and screenshotted it, and then I printed it on water slide decal paper. I'll leave a link to the paper down in my description box, but it was kind of in this rusty writing, and I really liked how it turned out. You'll use this clear gloss after you print your image, and you'll spray 2 coats on the water slide decal paper. You can kind of see this shine there that it gives it, and that just protects your ink. Then you'll just cut your image out to whatever size you would like it. I'm just showing you that it was in the middle of the paper, and I just cut it out, and I kind of detail cut it around the words there. And I'm just deciding which side is the best to place it on. And you'll just get some water. This is just like lukewarm water, and you're just going to place it down in. Now it's going to curl up. It's okay. Just let it curl up because it's not going to stay like that when it gets on your paper. But you let this soak for about a minute, minute and a half or so. You'll just take it off, and it's just going to slide from the backing. And then you're just going to place it on your item. And you can leave the back on it until you place it down, and then just kind of slide the back out from underneath it. I just chose to slide it off right there because it was starting to come off. And I just find the spot that I like, and you just start pressing it down. You will notice that there is some kind of like adhesive or glue or stickiness on the back of this little water slide decal, and that's what's going to adhere it to your item. So I'm just taking a paper towel, and I'm just moving the water from the outside, or from the inside to the outside. So I'm just kind of removing any bubbles. I'm pressing down to absorb any water, and then you still have room to slide it if you need to slide it either direction or anything like that. It's very easy to use, and you have a lot of wiggle room to kind of get it just precise and exactly how you want it. So you're just pressing down, removing any air bubbles or anything like that, making sure that there's no wrinkles or anything like that, and that you're drying it off. And then you're just going to let it sit for a little bit to completely dry. Then I am just taking some Mod Podge because I do want this to have a shimmer. The spray paint I used was kind of a chalky finish, and that paper, since I sprayed the clear coat on it, is shiny. So I want this all to match. So that way I'm trying to make it so you can't tell that there's a decal on the front of this. So I'm just going over with some clear gloss Mod Podge. And you guys, you cannot even tell that there was like an edge or anything to that. It honestly looks like this is printed right onto this bucket. I absolutely love how it turns out, and I love the water slide decal paper. This was the perfect size for a couple of little IKEA plants to sit down in, but how cute would a little strand of beads, wooden beads be hanging out of this? I think this is darling. I love it. Something that you definitely use all year round. I just love the greenery in there. It just seems summer and clean and crisp to me. Have you guys ever used the water slide decal paper? It is a total game changer. If you have not, I highly recommend it. So look for that link down in my description box. I am so excited to show you this particular DIY. I think this turns out so fun. I'm going to make a little bird cage out of these emery boards and some spindles that I got on Amazon. So I do take just this little round wood platform that you can get at Hobby Lobby. I think I've seen them at Dollar Tree. I know you can get them at JoAnns. I happened to find mine at a yard sale. Somebody was selling a whole box of different shapes of these, so I snagged that up so I'd have these. And I just take some wood glue and I glue a 4-inch insert, the inner portion of an emery board ring, to that. And then I'm taking these, I believe they're 5-inch spindles that I got on Amazon. I will link them below in my description box for you so you can find them easily, along with the emery, or not emery boards. Oh my gosh, you guys, the embroidery hoops. So anyway, I just take each of these spindles and use a little bit of hot glue and then glue them all around, use a little bit more hot glue for some support. And then I take some wood glue on a little craft stick there to spread it onto each of the top of the spindles. And then I take another insert from an embroidery hoop and I clamp it. I use my little Dollar Tree clamps to clamp it on to give it a good, strong, secure hold. But before I do that, I am going to use a little bit of hot glue. That's just going to give it that little bit of temporary quick hold, so that way it will dry quickly and then the wood glue can finish drying. The next thing I do is take some embroidery hoops and kind of fit them in and mark where I need to cut each of these. That way I'm going to cut 3 of them to make the top to the bird cage. And so I will kind of fit them in and I'll draw a little bit of a line where I need to cut. That way I know how tall I want the top of the bird cage to be. I will tell you from my experience that if you plan on putting like a little teeny potted plant or something in this, then definitely do not glue these in now. Just kind of dry fit them in, and then when you'll go and spray paint this, and then you will put your plant in and then glue the top on, because it's very hard, depending on how much space you leave between the spindles, to get things in and out. I did learn this the hard way, so I'm just passing on my knowledge to you. And then I did clamp the top because I did put a little bit of wood glue there to help keep it all affixed together. But after I take off all of the clamps and everything, this is what it looks like. I'm loving it. I do have this little teeny finial that I bought in a pack of 2 or 3 from Hobby Lobby. So I just use a little bit of wood glue on that to get that glued right onto the top. I did spray paint it this kind of steel blue color. It was late at night when I spray painted it, so the footage was extremely dark, but you've all seen me spray paint before, so you know what that looks like. But I love how the color turned out. I will link the color of that down in the description box. But I take just a little bit of the plaster Waverly chalk paint and dry brush this on to give it that little bit of weathered look. And I love how these two look together. I love this color of the steel blue. And I think that that little bit of dry brushing on it really brings out the details of those spindles as you go around. And I do just make sure that I get the inside of all of them and everything. And of course, you'll do this step too before you glue the top on if you're going to put a plant down inside. And then after you finish this, you can go ahead and glue those in. But I just really think that this white on top of this blue it just really sets it apart. I think it makes it look very high end, and like, I'm seriously so excited to use this in my decor. I think it looks so cute. Here's everything completed with the little plant inside of it. This is just one of the little plants that I got at IKEA. They come in like a set of 3. I think it looks so fun. This is just absolutely charming. I think it's gonna be so cute. What do you guys think of this one? Are you guys big into bird cages? I absolutely am loving them right now. This is one of my most favorite risers ever. I found this wall hanging at Hobby Lobby, and you can see here how it has the little detail to hang on a wall. It was $22. I got it at 50% off, so it was $11, but it's absolutely beautiful. And I have these little candle cups that I got at the little wood section there at Hobby Lobby as well, but I'll see if I can leave a link down in my description box to find these on Amazon. But I'm just going to turn this into a riser. I thought it would be so beautiful. So I'm just taking my needle nose pliers there to put inside of my little candle cup, and I'm just going to paint these the same color, or as close as I can get to the same color as my actual tray that I'm going to use. And then, since the tray itself is distressed, I am going to distress the little feet here so that way it matches and gives it one nice look. I just want to point out that you should always just look for shapes of things that you like. And if you think that just try it. I had no idea how this would end up looking, but I love it so much. And I'm just taking some E6000 and some hot glue, and I'm just putting these feet evenly spaced around the base of this on the back side, so that way it will stand up off of the counter. And then, as you can see here, I'm just making sure that all of my glue is cleaned up, because you don't want to see any of that seeping out anywhere. I thought this piece was absolutely beautiful when I saw it. I just didn't have anywhere in particular in my home that I could think of to hang it. So this way I still get to use it in my home and enjoy its beauty. Here it is, all decorated with some decor. Let me know what you guys think of this one. I think this is so high end, and it is so simple, and it is so awesome to be able to take a piece that you love and be able to convert it into something that will work for your home. Kirkland's has this adorable window, and it is quite large. However, at Dollar Tree, just currently, I found this last week at Dollar Tree, they have these little teeny windows back in stock. Now, I found this in the aisle where the frames are, and like the little canvases and things, just so in case you're looking, you know where to look. So I thought it would be cute to create a little mini version of that window. So I'm just taking some Mod Podge, and I am going around the whole area of this plastic, because I want to make sure that my paint sticks to the plastic and doesn't rub off. So I give a really good coat of Mod Podge all over the surface area of this window. Now, if you would like to do a bigger window and recreate a bigger window, I have made a couple of big windows out of plywood and my jigsaw, and I'll leave a link down in the description box so you know where to find those videos if you're interested in making one that is like true to size of the Kirkland's version. I thought it would just be really cute to use this little window to make a little mini version. I have never found these windows at Dollar Tree before, so I was ecstatic when I found this. So again, here I'm just putting some Mod Podge all over this, and then we're going to take it out to my spray paint studio, and I'm going to spray paint it a white color to match the one at Kirkland's. In the wood section at Hobby Lobby, I found this darling little welcome sign or welcome cutout here. It is very little. It fits across the window perfectly. So I'm just taking a baby wipe and some antiquing wax. You can do this in whatever color you would like to contrast with your window. That is what's so fun about DIY, is you get to personalize it to what you like. So you could paint your window any color. You can do this in any color. 4th of July colors would be super cute, but you can kind of see now that my window is painted there, how cute that welcome looks on there. So I'm just going to take it now, and I'm going to use some hot glue to glue this onto the window. If you put your hot glue on the back of the letters like this rather than the window, it is easier to disguise the hot glue pieces, so that way you don't have any clumps of glue on that crossbar of the window in between the letters. So here's just a look at the Kirkland's inspiration piece that I have here, and then here is a look at the window that I created from the Dollar Tree product, the window, and then the welcome tag from Hobby Lobby. So cute. I think this would be perfect for the top of a tiered tray or anywhere in your decor. It's going to be so cute. I honestly think I may put this in my china hutch with some things. I think this turned out so cute, and it was just a couple of dollars. Right now at Dollar Tree, they have these darling signs in their nautical area, and I'm just going to take off this little seashell because I'll use that for something else. And yes, this sign is beautiful the way that it is, but you guys, these signs right here are the exact same size as Dollar Tree's calendar pages. So if you have a favorite calendar page that you want to display or looking for something easy to do to kind of jazz up your decor, this is the perfect sign to get. So just keep that in mind. So all I'm doing is just taking my paint scraper, and you saw me remove that seashell, and now I'm just going to slip it underneath that frame, and I'm just going to go around the entire frame to break it free. And you can kind of see that there's a little bit of paper. I just wanted to be very gentle with that frame because I didn't want it to break. Now I love this farmhouse page here with that darling wreath. It's very neutral, and I just absolutely love it. And so that's what I chose to put on mine. Now watch this, you guys. Look at how easy this paper tears off of this. I don't know if all the signs are going to be that way, but I was absolutely floored that that came off that easy. So now I'm just going to take some black paint because I thought that would match that calendar page well. I mean, you could leave this whatever color was on there would be totally fine and skip this step and make it even easier. I just thought that black would match a little bit better with that calendar page and with my decor. And now I'm just taking a little bit of the purple glue stick. This is from Elmer's, and I'm just going to go around the edges really well to make sure. And then I don't do super a ton in the middle, just enough to hold that calendar page down because we are going to glue that frame on the top of it that will also help it stick. And so I just kind of center that before placing it down. You have a little bit of wiggle room to kind of move it around and get it centered, all of that fun stuff. And then I'll smooth it out, and I also grab my brayer just to make sure that it gets any bubbles or anything like that completely out, and that way it adheres to everywhere where the glue was placed. I just take the end of a paintbrush and stick that through those little holes there because I want to place that little hanging tag back on it. And then I am just going to take my hot glue is all I use, and I'm just going to glue each section on. Now this frame came off in one piece, but when I went to glue it on, I realized it was going to be easier to kind of break them apart and glue each one on individually. So that way I could have a little bit more control over where it went and the spacing and all of that. So that's why I ended up taking and totally disassembling the frame. It's super easy to do. I mean, it's just held together by a little bit of like the paper that was left on the back of it. So, I mean, it was literally just like ripping them apart. And as you just saw, I used my brayer a couple of times just to help get that pressed down really well and evenly. And on this top piece, you just match up the little holes that are there because I do want to place that hanging little beaded hanger from it. And then you just take, what I did is I took a little bit of white chalk paint on a chip brush and kind of went over the edges. This just kind of gave it a little bit more of a farmhouse look. I always like to distress a little bit there. And then I just replaced this little beaded hanging thing from it. And I had a couple of extra beads that were the same size, and I thought it would look better to have a few more beads. So I just placed those on there. Now it looks cute with this little thing hanging down like this, or you can hang it from the tag. Either way. I just love that these signs are in Dollar Tree right now and that they are the exact size of these calendar pages because there are some beautiful pages. I'm sure you guys have seen so many DIYs with these, but this is so simple to be able to display in this way. Anyway, I'm curious to know what your thoughts are on this one. This DIY turns out so cute. Dollar Tree has these little nesting boxes in their crafting corner, and I'm using 2 of those. And then I'm just using a wooden dowel, or you can pick up a plunger at Dollar Tree and just use the handle on the plunger. It's made out of wood. You can use that for your wooden dowels, and it's sometimes a lot cheaper than getting them like at the craft store or hardware store. Now I have just cut my dowel down to the size that I want my little tiered tray to be, and which I think this is about 7 inches that I did. And I'm just using some hot glue and wood glue. Now I wanted to glue my dowel more towards the back of the box because I want more items to be able to fit in the front when I decorate with it, because this will be in a space where you won't really see the back of it. So keep in mind, if you want to decorate it all the way around, you might want to center your dowel a little bit more. Now just using some hot glue and wood glue, I just do the same process to get that top nesting box glued on. Here's just a bonus little hack for you. If you ever find little napkin rings, keep in mind of what you might be able to do with them. This particular napkin ring came from Hobby Lobby. The little pot came from Dollar Tree. I'm just using it to stuff in my little tiered tray. It looks almost like a little topiary there, even if you see the hole in the middle. But those little napkin rings, if you ever find those at any stores that you're traveling to, keep in mind of different things you can do with them on tiered trays because they're a lot of fun. Dollar Tree has recently had a lot of these wooden beads. You get them in a pack of 125 and it comes in all sorts of different sizes. So I'm just going to make a little beaded garland because I love hanging beaded garland from different things. It adds a lot of texture and I just think they're really cute. So I'm just doing a little pattern with a couple of small, then I do the next size up and then the biggest size. And I just repeat that pattern throughout the whole length of this beaded garland. If you're not lucky enough to find these beads at your Dollar Tree yet, keep watching for them, but I always have a link in my description box for ones that I like to buy on Amazon, so just keep that in mind if you can't find those. I am just using a galvanized tag that I also got at Dollar Tree, and I will just loop over my twine and feed that little beaded garland through there so that way it can tie easily onto. You can kind of tie that on however you want. That's just how I chose to do it. And then all I'm going to do here is just take the end of my twine, feed it up through a couple of the beads and cut it off so that way you don't have that little piece hanging out. You could always make a tassel for the other end of this, or instead of the tag, I decided just to tie mine off at the other end because it will be resting inside of the tiered tray and you won't see it. So I just tie a knot with that, and then I like to use a little bit of hot glue just to secure that knot. And I mean just ever such a small little daub of hot glue on there just to kind of make sure that knot is not going to come untied or anything in the future. Now I'm using some of these little rub-on transfers from Dollar Tree. These are some of their new farmhouse line that they have, which are super cute. I'm just taking the word welcome and I just cut it down from that sheet because I can use all of those others and other projects that I have. And I like to just use a little wooden craft stick. These particular rub-on transfers go on very smooth and very easily. If you saw me use the foiled ones, I have not had luck with those, but these are very simple. You can see I just peel that back and it just comes right off and transfers that word welcome on there. And it's just something really cute to place in your tiered tray. I love to collect different types of coasters to use for DIY projects. I found these darling little farmhouse coasters at Hobby Lobby. I'm just gluing a couple of the tumbling tower blocks onto the bottom and it makes a cute little stand for my tiered tray. This little welcome sign turns out super cute there, and here is everything put together. I love how this turns out. It is so cute. It is very farmhouse and it is a perfect way to use those wooden beads and those little wooden nesting boxes from Dollar Tree. I got this cute little sign blank at Hobby Lobby. You can see it was $3.50, but I bought it when the metal items were 50% off. Now I am jumping on the Chalk Couture bandwagon and we are going to try a Chalk Couture stencil. I have only tried one other little teeny tiny like Chalk Couture tag. So this is kind of like one of my first like on my own projects. So I am just taking my little fuzzy mat here and you're going to lay the stencil down on it a couple of times. I'm not even sure I was doing it on the right side of the mat, but it seemed to be doing what it needed to do. But you do this a couple times to kind of make the adhesive on the back not super sticky because you do want to be able to lift this off of your surface. So I am just using the Welcome to Our Nest portion of this stencil. So I just line that up. It lines up perfectly with the sides of my little sign. And then I take my black chalk paste and I am just spreading it with my little tool there. And I am just going to cover this completely. This is very much like screen printing. If you've ever done graphics or seen anything like that, the same concept here. I am just gliding that paste over where all of the openings are of my saying there, the Welcome to Our Nest. And then moment of truth, I go to peel this up and I'm honestly shocked and amazed at how wonderful that works. I mean, look at that. It was so easy. I did speed this up to double time, but other than that, like that's the amount of time it took me to do that. I just love how that turned out. If you do have questions about Chalk Couture or anything, just leave me a message or find me on Instagram, send me a DM or something, and I'll get back to you to get you some more information. But I am just taking now some antiquing wax and I'm going around the edge of the sign to kind of age this. And then after I go around all of the edges and I focus on like my little holes where the twine will tie, I kind of go through the whole sign to kind of just barely buff in some of that antiquing wax to kind of give it a really aged look. I thought the Welcome to Our Nest was a very spring type of saying. I thought it was super cute. I love that idea that this is just, you know, welcome to our home. Just kind of a fun little take on that. I feel that this sign is going to need something more than just putting that little twine hanger back on it, so I decide to make a scrap bow. Now you can customize this to be whatever colors you want. I know necessarily like these more natural, the blacks and the twine and everything are maybe not the most spring type colors. However, this is kind of a neutral decor that does match my house, but you could make this whatever color you wanted. But I'm just cutting about 6 inches off of each of these different ribbons. I even stick a little bit of jute twine in there, just anything I can think of. It's called a scrap bow. So you just kind of put scraps of whatever you have in there. And then after I kind of lay these all just at different angles, I just take some twine, I turn it over and I tie that twine off in the back, tie it really tight, and that's what's going to scrunch all of your little scraps together. And then to kind of finish it off, I just take one of the ribbons that I used in the bow itself, and I just kind of glue it around the back and wrap it around to the front to make the little center to the bow. Now I just go ahead and tie on that little jute twine hanger back on the sign so that way I can hang it, and then I am going to glue the bow on in the corner. I did take the time with the bow to trim all of the ends so they had a nice angle to them, or a dovetail, and just kind of make the strips of your ribbon kind of match the size of your sign, if that makes sense. And then I did decide it does need a little bit of greenery to kind of freshen it up, so I'm just taking a couple of sprigs. I believe this is like eucalyptus is what this artificial plant is. It's one of the ones from IKEA that's like $4 or $5, so I just took a couple sprigs off of that and just glue one in each side of the bow there, kind of sticking out. I feel that adds a little bit of freshness, makes it look a little bit more spring-like, I think. But I love how this turned out. That chalk couture was so slick and so easy. It was so simple, and I just think for just a couple of minutes, like, this is such an adorable sign. I absolutely love making fun little things with these trays from Dollar Tree. So I am just taking it, and I will list the spray paint that I use down in my description box, but it is a type of like outdoor paint that kind of gives it like a hammered metal look. Look down in my description box and I'll leave you the name and everything of what it is, and if I can find a link on Amazon, I'll leave that as well. But I'm taking these little paper placemats from Hobby Lobby. Guys, I always find these left over from like the season. I feel like they maybe don't sell as well. People don't know what to do with them or something, because I always find them and they're so cute. So I just traced the base of the tray on the my little placemat there, and now I'm just kind of pushing it into the edge here to kind of make another, I'm making a template is what I'm going to do, so I'll use this to cut another one out. So I'm just cutting around all of the edge to make sure that it fits in the center of that tray. Hopefully you can see what I'm doing and it's making sense to you. So I'll just kind of put that in. It fits great, so I'll put it on another one. This is my final piece here. I will trace this out because that first piece kind of got wrinkled and everything when I was playing around with it, and I will just cut this one out, and we're just going to adhere this to the tray. Now I'm just using my purple school glue. This is just like a glue stick from Elmer's, and I'm just going to put this on the base of the platter here and then use the placemat to stick down on there. I've had a couple of questions asking how well this glue holds up. I have done projects with this that are like 2 or 3 years old or more, and I have not had any problem with the paper lifting up. I do recommend using a higher quality. I have used just like the JOT or JOT brand from Dollar Tree glue, and it has not held up as well on some projects. So I'm just saying, like, maybe use a higher end of glue stick if you're planning on reselling these or having longevity. I have not had a problem with this purple school glue, which is why I use it nonstop. But I'm just using my brayer here, and I'm just going to smooth out any wrinkles or anything. And then I am just going to take Mod Podge and first go around the edges of the paper to seal those down, and then I will Mod Podge the entire piece of paper. The Mod Podge is just going to help seal this, and I do end up going around the entire tray with it as well. This is not going to be food safe, so I just want to point that out. This is just for decorative purposes only. I have a china hutch that I like to put different dishes and things in, and this is always cute to have this platter size in there as a background. Now, I was using a type of Mod Podge that was called like hard coat or something. You can see here, it's just what I happen to have and grab. I probably would just do a normal shiny gloss next time on it, so just fair warning on that. But I think it still turned out really cute, and it's going to look absolutely darling in my china hutch. Are you guys on Instagram? If you are, I would love if you would come and find me. I am Farm Charm Chic over there. I'll leave a link down in my description box so you can easily find me. But come and see what I'm working on. I post there quite a bit. I like to show you things that I'm working on or when I have videos ready. It's just another place to stay in touch. So if you do come find me, remember to send me a DM and say hi, because I do love meeting new friends. I had some wooden blocks that I had picked up at a yard sale, and I just gave them kind of a whitewash, and now I am just going over them and I am painting a faux ticking stripe to kind of match all of my other French farmhouse bead decor that I'm doing. And I just freehand this on here, so it does not have to be perfect. You can tell that I am not by any means able to paint straight lines, but it ends up looking okay in the end. I was a little skeptical, but I think it ends up looking okay. After I get all of those stripes painted on all of the sides of these little blocks here, I go in with some white paint on a little chip brush here, you can kind of see, and I just kind of distress that even more so it does look a little bit more faded. I have been asked by several people to give a little bit more thorough detail on how to print on tissue paper. So I am just taking a regular piece of copy paper and a regular piece of tissue paper. One side of the tissue paper kind of has a shiny sheen to it, and the other side is more of a dull, softer side. So I like to print with that shiny, slick side down to the paper, so that softer side is what is up, what goes through your printer. So I just take a corner of the tissue paper and move in a little bit on my paper, and then I am just placing tape down to tape the corners really well. After I get my first corner taped there, I will just take a pair of scissors and I am just going to trim the tissue paper down to fit on my paper so I can tape all of the edges down. Now, I have seen a couple of different methods on how to tape your paper down. This is how I've had the most success. You can bring the tissue paper around the edges of your paper if you want, just as long as that paper fits through your printer and doesn't rip or anything. And this is how I've had the most success. After I cut it down, I just tape all of the corners down, making sure that my tape covers that entire corner so nothing's going to like get caught in my printer. I then take a couple of pieces of tape and I tape along the edges. I don't want any air getting underneath that tissue paper and having it bubble up when it goes into the printer when it starts printing, and this helps prevent that from happening. So I will just feed this through my printer just like a normal piece of paper now. So whatever side you put your paper in, so you want the tissue paper where the ink comes through. Does that make sense? So I'm putting it so it will print on the tissue paper on the paper. So when I first printed mine, I printed it and it came out black, like very dark. You can see here. And that wasn't really the French like farmhouse look that I wanted. So I went ahead and redid my image in Canva, and I just printed these in Canva and did a gray color. You can see this one, the tissue paper did rip a little bit, but it did not rip any of the images, so it's still okay. So I'm just going to, you just cut around these. You can, I don't like to tear it because I don't want to risk tearing my image. So at this point, I just cut these off here until I get my little tissue paper, and you just take that off of the paper, throw your paper away, and you're left with these darling images printed on the tissue paper. Now, I've had several people tell me that they sell like water pens to do this with, or specific things to do this with. I don't have those on hand. I'm not going to go buy one because it works just fine to use a little paintbrush and a little bit of water and do the method this way. If you have one of those brushes or want to invest in one of those, go for it. I don't see the need because I do this every once in a while and this totally works. So, but I just want you to know there is that tool out there, and every time I do this, everyone tells me about the pens. I am well aware that there are the pens. This works just fine for me. So I just kind of go around my image a little bit with a little water on that brush, and then you're able to tear away that tissue paper, and it kind of gives you a little frayed edge. So when we decoupage this onto our blocks, you're not really going to see the edge of the tissue paper. So now I'm just taking some decoupage on my brush. I am using a matte decoupage and I am just putting it all over my surface there very lightly. And I am just using, I'm not really sure what this little tool is called here. It came with my Cricut accessories, but I love it for this because then I don't get my fingers all messed up. And I just center it as best I can. And then using my finger, my dry finger, I'm just kind of pressing it around from the middle outwards to kind of have it not have as many wrinkles. And then once I get to that very outward edge, I use my brayer to kind of get that cemented down on there, if you will. And that helps smooth it all out. And then I go around the edges with a little bit of decoupage first. I let that dry, and then I will go over the entire image with a very, very, very thin coat of decoupage to help protect it and help it so it doesn't like rip or anything like that. Now, do be careful when you're using your brayer on the tissue paper because tissue paper is a little bit more sturdy than a napkin is, so it can handle a brayer a little better, but you do run the risk of tearing it, so just be very careful with that. Now, the wonderful thing about this is when you first place it on there, you can kind of see the tissue paper outline, but as you do the decoupage around the edge and you do the decoupage over the top of it, literally that edge vanishes. Like it looks like this is either printed on there. I love how this looks. I love the water slide decal paper. You could easily use that for this project, but I feel like this, you don't get that sheen like you do with the decal paper. I think this is such a wonderful trick. And look at how beautiful these little blocks turned out. I think they turned out so cute. I think they're that perfect touch of farmhouse and French country. And if you wanted to place images around all sides of them, you easily could do that as well. It would be fun to have some different themes on all the different sides of them as well. I have been loving these little succulent displays I have been seeing. This one is from Kirkland's and it will be our inspiration piece. Now you may, if you've watched me, remember this piece from Easter time that I created. I had this little drawer that I found at Hobby Lobby on clearance, but you can use any container that you might have, such as this one from Dollar Tree. I have even seen these dowels are everywhere. I have a good link on Amazon. I'll leave down there for you to find them inexpensively. But I've seen a lot of different displays in those. Even these little boxes that you may have seen like in your thrift store or from floral arrangements. I have a video where I redid that one. I can leave the link to that as well. But I'm just going to use this piece from Easter so I can have it be more of a year-round piece. So I'm just going to remove these eggs that I had put on barbecue skewers. Now if I decide to at Easter time slip these eggs back into this piece, I can easily do that. So I'm just taking a bunch of different succulents that I have. Now these came from a combination of Dollar Tree, Amazon, and Hobby Lobby. I'm going to start with this taller piece right here because I feel like that kind of gives a little bit of height, so I'm starting with that. And then I also have this one, I think this is called like string of pearls or something in the succulents world. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm just going to slip this down here in this corner kind of opposite from where my height is to kind of give a little bit of drooping and swoopness, if that like coming down, cascading over, if that makes sense. I felt like that gave a really good balance. Now I am by no means a florist, an arranger of florals or anything. You guys know that I kind of just do what looks good and what's pleasing to my eye, and that is what is so wonderful about this is you really can't do anything wrong. As long as you're doing it to what you like, you're going to do a fantastic job. I'm not hot gluing anything into this arrangement right now, so I can change it out if I decide to. This little box does have a layer of styrofoam that I glued in there. In fact, I'll leave a link in my description box of the original video so you can see how I set this box up with the styrofoam if you're interested in that. But if I do want to replace those eggs or anything else in there, I can take these out, or I can switch things around if I want to. Now, if you guys have never heard me talk about succulents, I always pick some up at Dollar Tree. Their succulents for $1 is great. However, on Amazon, you can find the most beautiful succulents that ends up being about $1.25 to $1.50 per piece of succulents, which now that Dollar Tree is $1.25, it makes it much more comparable in price to those, but they are so much more realistic. And like the string of pearls that I got that is drooping over the edge was part in one of the packages that I got. You get some really good different variations. So I'll leave a link to that as well if you're looking for some really good alternative to Dollar Tree succulents, because I feel like you get the same like 4 or 5 different pieces there. It's really hard to find some of the different variations. And in the packages you get on Amazon, you get a lot, and I feel like it's very comparable in price. Just make sure that you're turning your box or your little container all the way around. Get it from a 360 view to get all of those spaces filled in. Now here is a look again at the Kirkland's version, and here is a look at the version that I recreated. I love this. I love the fresh feeling that it has. And honestly, like, this maybe was about $25 to recreate, but the original pieces I have seen go for well over $100 to $200 depending on how big they are. What do you guys think of this? Do you like the Succulents arrangements like this? They are becoming one of my most favorites. These little mini charcuterie or cutting boards from Dollar Tree are darling. They're in their crafting section. I'm also using a crate and then a dowel, but you could also use a plunger handle if you want to grab everything from Dollar Tree. Now these are the exact perfect size to fit on the sides of one of these crates, and I thought this would make a darling little box. So I'm just using some wood glue on the sides of my crate here, and I'm just going to glue both of those charcuterie boards onto the side of my little crate there so we can make our little box. I like to take my little box I set up on the table to make sure it has a flat bottom, and kind of use my fingers to kind of zhuzh those little charcuterie boards around to make sure all of the lines end up even and everything. And then I just put some wood glue on my dowel, and I just carefully slide that in between those. And then I just use a wipe to wipe any excess wood glue off. And then I just kind of press it to make sure everything is good. So I take some little half beads now, and I'm just using a little bit of super glue and the wood glue, and I'm gluing those on the outside part of where my dowel is. It's going to look like it's covering a little nail head or something. I thought it would be a really cute contrast, completely optional if you decide not to do this part. I haven't yet seen any half beads at Dollar Tree. If you guys have seen anything like that, I would love for you to let me know down in the comments. I do get mine on Amazon. I'll put a link to those down below, but I'm excited and hopeful that Dollar Tree will hopefully come out with something like that fairly soon. I did clamp this together, but I don't think that you would have to do that. I just left it to dry for about 30 minutes, but I think without the clamp you would be fine. But now I'm going to go ahead and paint this, and at first I decided just to paint the entire thing white and kind of start from there and kind of look at it and see what I wanted to do with it, if I wanted to add contrasting colors or do a pattern or anything like that. So just give this a spray paint, or if you just want to use chalk paint, however you want to get this painted, you'll just do your choice. When I did get it all painted white, it was very stark and it needed something, so I thought I would go around all of the edges and give kind of that black farmhouse look to it. I thought this was really cute. It took a little bit of patience just to make sure I didn't get black paint spilled over onto the white. Of course, you would have to go back and touch up if you did that. And then just very carefully I painted those little half beads as well as the handle on it also. In the end, I really love how this turns out with the two-tone, and I'm really glad that I took the time to do this because it really does kind of make this piece. Now, the sides are a little bit plain, and so you can embellish them however you want, or you can leave them. I'm just showing you what I did with mine, so this step is completely optional. I do use a couple, or just one of the Chalk Couture little stencils here. So when you use Chalk Couture, you just kind of put it on a little fuzzing mat there. It just kind of makes that stencil not as sticky, so it's not going to tear your paint or anything up. And then you just use chalk paste that they sell, and you just kind of put that over with a squeegee. It's very much like screen printing. When you pull back that, the design is revealed and it looks really cute. Check my description box for more information on Chalk Couture. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them for you, but just know that you're going to use whatever means you have available to you to embellish yours. So it does not have to be like mine. This is just meant to be inspiration. Now I sanded the edges, and then I took a little bit of black paint on a baby wipe, and I just am running my finger over all of the edges on this. And for some reason, this is what really made the piece to me. I'm not really sure if it just gave it like a defining something or made it look like enamel or what it was, but I really, as I started this, I wasn't sure I was going to like it, and I fell in love as I was doing this. I thought it really, really made the piece. So inside and out, I just go over all of the edges, and then I even decided to go over the crate, which I wasn't really sure about, but I'm so glad that I did because I do like the definition that it gives and like how it turns out. Now, if this is not your style or you're not loving how this looks, obviously skip this step, but it's totally my style, and I think it really just screams farmhouse, and I love it. Remember to subscribe if you're liking the projects that you're seeing today. These are some of my most favorite farmhouse projects. The next one that I do is my absolute Dollar Tree favorite of all time. This is very close though. I love how this turns out. So I'm going to show you from a different couple of angles here. Depending on your decor or where you want to set this in your house, you can set it sideways. It looks super cute at an angle or straight on. Either way with a little plant. You could even stick whatever you wanted in there besides a plant. I love how this turns out, and I think literally this is one of my favorites. I think it is absolutely beautiful. I am so excited about this project. I know I say that about a lot of them, but you guys, seriously, this is one of my all-time favorite projects. So I'm making a lantern. So I just decided how tall I wanted my lantern to be, and I'm taking, we have like these long slats of wood here. So I am cutting it down into 18 inches, and I make 4 pieces in that 18-inch cut. Now, you wouldn't have to do yours this tall if you wanted to do it, 12 inches, 10 inches, 30 inches, however tall you want yours is how tall you're going to cut these pieces. So I just take my first piece, I cut it to 18 inches. I like to take my next piece, use it as a template as where to cut the next piece. You could easily measure out each piece, which is probably what my husband would tell me to do, is measure it rather than use a template, but whatever works for you. Again, that's why I love this farmhouse rustic style, is it's rustic. It doesn't have to be super exact. I mean, it needs to be exact enough for things to be able to put together, but I think you guys get what I'm saying here. So I just cut 4 of those pieces out at 18 inches long. So I just brushed off my wood. The barn wood has a texture to it that picks up a lot of like sawdust or different things. So I'm just cleaning it off before I really start working with each individual piece. And then I'm taking just a Clorox wipe container to trace a little bit of a circle. I'm wanting to do like an arch shape on this. And so I just trace that little like half circle there. You could trace the whole circle and then use a straight edge to do a line down. So I'll show you in a moment what that looks like, but you can really, if you even just wanted to cut a simple rectangle out, you could do that. I just like the arch look, but you can see how that arch is kind of on there and it goes all the way down to the end there, and then it squares off. So now we're going to use our jigsaw to cut this shape out. So I'm just going to clamp my wood so that way it's nice and secure so I can drill my pilot hole. The reason that you drill a pilot hole is you have to have something for your jigsaw blade to fit through. Now I'm just showing you how easy the jigsaw is. There's a little trigger on there and that's what makes it go. You can do it as fast or as slow as you want. I'm encouraging you to not let this intimidate you, because honestly, these projects are so simple. And once you do it like your first project with your jigsaw, you're going to go, oh my gosh, okay, that was really easy and really fun. And your mind starts just reeling with all these different ideas of things to make. But I am just using this to cut out this shape, and I'll do this on all 4 pieces. And again, you can go as slow as you want. You can have it go as fast as you need it to, but it's not going to feel like you're out of control. And so you'll use that pilot hole, and you kind of have to curve your way around to get onto your line that you've traced, and then you'll just kind of go back over different ways for the lines. I hope that's making sense and you can see what I'm doing, but see how I use that pilot hole to guide my blade around so I could get that arch there? That's what I'm talking about there. So now I just clamp this so I can get to the other side of it. So I will just slide my blade into one of the cuts that I've already made and then just continue on. When you get to a corner, because you can't do like a 90-degree cut, you kind of have to back up a little bit. You'll stop your blade, back up a little bit, and kind of curve it around to get that next corner. So you can see how I back that up, and I'll curve it around to get on that next line, and then I'll come back and get from the other direction, and it will cut that corner out. I hope that makes sense to you. I just made a window in one of my videos, like a Gothic window. I will leave a link to that down in my description box so you can kind of see that too. I give a little bit more detail on using my jigsaw there. Now that I cut my first one out, I just use that as a template to draw a template on the rest of my 3 pieces for those cutouts. So I'm going to cut this out on all 4 pieces. So I just trace, and that barnwood is pretty dark, so I have to trace pretty hard so you can see it, but you can see that line there. I'll just do the same thing with the next 4 pieces, just cutting each of those out. So I just want to show you how easy it is to go around this curve here. You just want to switch places on your jigsaw so you have control of it with your correct hand and everything. And you can see you just kind of slowly go right around that. And that was sped up, guys. So I mean, I'm doing this fairly slow. Now, when you get your pieces cut out, you're going to look at those edges and go, this does not look very pretty. At this point, I was a little discouraged, but I thought I'm just going to keep going. And so pull your sander out and sand those edges. You're kind of going to round those edges out, sand both sides, every raw edge, and it's going to soften it, and it's going to make it look so much better. Kind of think like it's going to look like it's carved out of wood. So I did glue all the pieces together, and just in the same way that I'm gluing the base on here, but I just took each of those sides and glued them to the other side there, and then I just glued the base on. I just used wood glue. I didn't use any nails or anything like that. And now I'm just taking some antiquing wax, and I am just kind of using my finger. Again, this is just because I have that barn ironwood that has that finish, and when you cut the raw edge, it's very stark difference. And so I just took some antiquing wax and went over it, went over all of the edges, the very top of it where those edges are exposed, I do it there as well. So you could even, if you're just cutting this out of like a regular piece of MDF board, just paint it whatever color you wanted to. That would be super easy. Just use some spray paint and that would be super quick as well. You guys, oh my gosh, I can't believe I made this. Like this has easily got to be like the top 3 of projects I've ever made. I absolutely love this. And you know what the hardest part is, you guys, is getting over that fear of using power tools. I promise you, once you do a jigsaw project your first time, your world is going to completely change. You're going to love it. It is so easy, I promise you. Please let me know what you think of this lantern down in the description box. I would love to know your thoughts on this. I don't know if you guys remember back when I got this little sugar mold off of Amazon. I absolutely love it. I've been looking through the antique stores to find one. You can find them at a lot of different home decor stores right now, but I'll leave a link to this one that I found on Amazon. And I had decorated it for spring with some carrots like this. And I'll leave a link to that video if you want to see how I did that. But I am going to change it up for summer. I was so excited to find this on Amazon, and it was fairly affordable, and I just wanted to be able to change it for seasons. So I had just lightly hot glued this little picture on there, and I'm just showing you it comes right off. It looks perfectly great, and I'm just going to update it with a little bit of a summer flair. I have this faux lavender that I got at JoAnns, and I'm just cutting off like 3 little sprigs to go in each of the little holes there. You could easily use anything from Dollar Tree, would be super easy and super cute. Whatever your favorite florals were, you can make it whatever color. Down in each of the little hole sections, I just have some Spanish moss and a little bit of reindeer moss on top to add a little bit of greenery. I did not glue those down in because I wanted it to be, I wanted to be able to remove it for different seasons if I needed to, if I had different ideas. Now I'm just taking some burlap ribbon and I am just going to put this around all of the edges, and I will just glue it, not to the wood, but I will just glue the ribbon to itself so it's easily removable when I'm ready to change it. Keep in mind that where this is not exactly straight up and down, there is an angle to it. The ribbon doesn't sit completely flat on the back. It kind of curves up, if that makes sense. You'll be able to see when I flip it over. And so it is going to go next to a wall, against a wall, so you would not see that. So just keep that in mind of where you're putting yours. I have this little chicken wire ribbon that came from Hobby Lobby, and I know this does not show up the best on camera. You can see it really well in person, the contrast. So if you were to do this or wanted to do a darker color of ribbon or something, I just thought this added a little bit of texture and I loved it. Can you see how that doesn't sit completely straight on the back? Like it kind of goes up to a little bit of a peak, and that's just because this is kind of an angled cut that's to the piece of wood. Now I just kind of wrap the ends of the twine there, not the twine, I'm doing twine right now, but of the chicken wire on the back to make sure that that stays. And then I just take a few yards of jute twine and just wrap it around the chicken wire to add just another little element of texture there. And then I'm going to do a cute little bow to put on the front of it. So I'll just tie this off in a knot here, and then I'm just wrapping around my finger some jute twine, and I wrap it around maybe 20 times or so to make a bunch of little loops, and then I'll just wrap a centerpiece around 4 or 5 or 6 times. I'm not really sure. I just do it till it looks good, and then I'll just tie that off in the back in kind of just a little knot there, and I'll use those as the little tails that come down. So I snip those. I make sure it looks good. I'm snipping off the other little tails from that little tie, so it'll have some cute little tails as well. And I just kind of fanned that bow out, and you could do whatever color ribbon you want. These are just what I had here, and I know that they kind of all blend together here on camera. You can see them better in person, but a different color of twine would be absolutely darling, like a light color or something to have a little bit more contrast, but it really does look cute. I love how it turns out. Guys, I love this little sugar mold. I am so excited for every season. You'll probably see me do a few more of these to kind of give you ideas to style them, because it is so versatile. I mean, I think I paid $13 for this sugar mold, and it's going to be in my house all year long, and there's so many different fun things to do. And I'll leave a link to that down in my description box if you'd like to check that out. I found this picture on Kirkland's website, and I thought it was so cute, and it reminded me of some items that I had. So I have this little white pitcher here that I used to display some flowers in. You can find these very inexpensively at IKEA, Target, Hobby Lobby, anywhere like that. But I have these little rub-on decals from Dollar Tree, and I'm just showing you that I had cut the wreath portion out to do in other DIYs, and I have all of these little remaining leaves and petals or whatever these are right here, these little stems. And I thought I would use these to kind of recreate the look on this picture. So I'm just cutting each of these individually out. Now these rub-on transfers came from Dollar Tree. I know you can get some on Amazon. I'm not sure that I've seen them necessarily in the craft stores. If you have seen them like at Michael's or Hobby Lobby or JoAnns, I would love to know like in what area you found them, because I haven't really had success in finding them there. But I'm starting with the bigger pieces that I have, and I'm just kind of going to lay these down, and then I just take a craft stick or like a popsicle stick type thing, and I'm just going to gently rub on all of the surface area of this, and it is going to transfer this little leaf pattern here onto my picture. These transfer quite easily, and if you ever have an instance where you pull back that layer sheet like I did just there and some of the transfer starts to come off, you just lay it back down and do your little craft stick over the top of it to transfer, and it is quite easy to do, and you can't tell that there was like any type of break or anything in the pattern. So now the process of this is just finding a spot for all of these little transfers here. So I just kind of went around in different areas very randomly and just decided to start sticking some things on here. This was a very, I'll kind of speed this up a little bit here, but it was kind of just a process of turning my picture this way and that way, finding different shapes. I tried to start with the bigger ones and then go to the next size down. But if I ever saw a spot that I'm like, oh, this is a perfect to tuck this little design into. To me, I've had a lot of these rub-on transfers left over for like the last year from using that darling little wreath in the middle of this design. And so I was looking for the perfect project to use all of these little ferns and little branches and everything on, leaves, whatever they are. And this was once I saw this on Kirkland's, I knew that I had to do this and that this was the perfect project to do. And this maybe took like 20 minutes to do. It wasn't a long project at all, and it was super easy, and I think it turns out extremely cute. So here is the original Kirkland's inspiration piece here, and then here is the picture that I recreated. That I created. I love how it turns out. It's going to be perfect to put some florals in, and I think it's going to be the perfect addition to my farmhouse kitchen. I have this little oval sign left over from Christmas time, and I just used some spackling to cover in that little hole at the top, sand it down, and I'm just going to cover this completely in some white chalk paint. You can totally pick your own colors that match your own decor to do this. With this sign, I don't need this little end part here. It's a little bit taller than what I need, so I'm just using my saw to cut that off. To me, this oval shape looked kind of like an egg, so I thought it would be fun to make like a little farm fresh egg sign out of it. So I'm just going to use my cutting machine to cut out where it says farm fresh eggs here. And I got this from Cricut Design Space, but you could definitely freehand something. You can use the water slide decal paper, print on tissue paper. There's so many different options that you can do and use to get whatever type of lettering you want on your sign. And then I'm just showing you I have this cute little rooster that is a Christmas ornament left over. It's from Hobby Lobby. Guys, if you're ever looking for something for tiered trays or to have for some little different embellishments here and there, when the Christmas ornaments come out of Hobby Lobby, think of that as you're looking through them. I am just going to cover the back of the sign up, so I'm just cutting some craft paper down to size. I'll take some hot glue and run it all around the perimeter of the sign, and then I will just take my brayer. I do have a link for that down in my description box, and I just roll that hot glue while it's still warm, and it just kind of spreads it out a little bit, and it's going to make that paper stick. Then I just cut it as close as I can, and then I will take my little sander and I will just in a slow downward motion sand around all of the edges, and that backing will look like it was meant to go on the sign and made for it. So now I just take my cute little chicken and I just put hot glue all over the back side. I'm just going to turn it over and glue it to the top portion of the sign. I decided to kind of have it peeking up over the top there. That is completely personal preference there. And then I just used some tumbling tower blocks from Dollar Tree to put on either side and sandwich and make a little stand for it. And now I just take one of these little egg cartons. I can't remember if I got this one at Dollar Tree or Walmart. You get them either place, and they come with a bunch of little fake eggs inside of it. And I'm just gluing that to the back of the sign, and then I'm just gluing a couple little tumbling tower blocks onto the bottom of it so it can stand upright. Just put my cute little eggs in there, and now I'm just going to kind of do some embellishing. I like to go over my vinyl with a little bit of white paint in my brush to kind of make it look not so shiny. And then I always go around the edge of my items with, not always, but most of the time, with a little bit of antiquing wax to give it a little bit of age and embellishing farmhouse look. Look how cute this looks. I'm so excited to put this in my china hutch with these cute little eggs there. I think this is so fun. I love it. I would love to know what you think of this one. This project is so easy, I think anyone can do this. This just takes a little piece of wood that I have here. Mine is probably about 14 to 16 inches long, but you can make it any length or any width that you would like. Now, if you remember, we had a barn that we tore down, so I have a lot of salvaged barn wood that we have sitting in our garage. And so my projects all today use that, but you can use any type of salvaged wood or any type of wood that you would like. I just got this fabric at JoAnns. It just reminded me that it was very farmhouse with that little almost like ticking stripe through it. I really liked it. And so what I'm doing is I just cut it down to the size that I needed for my board. And I am just kind of tearing off the sides, like pulling those little threads out to kind of fray the edges, to kind of give it a little bit of, you know, a worn out look, I guess. And so just on the sides, I do that with all of the sides that I can. I don't really need to on the bottom because I'm going to be gluing some beads along the bottom. So I just hot glue this to my piece of wood. We're just making a little pocket here because we're going to stick some florals in there. So I used my little brayer and immediately realized probably not the smartest idea because it kind of made the fabric ruffle up. So just kind of lightly press it with your fingers. It will seep through the fabric a little bit, so just be careful. Use finger protectors if you're worried about that. But I just go around 3 edges, the 2 sides and the bottom, to make sure that it is adhered really good. This is why I frayed those edges, is because they're going to be showing there, and so I just wanted them to kind of look like it was an intentional, like, worn out look. Now I have these wooden half beads from Amazon, and they will be linked down in my description box. These are the smaller, like a really small size, so I'll try and link the size down there of these, because I buy these and I buy the little bit bigger size, but these I want to say, I don't really even know, 8mm maybe. I'll check and I'll put that down in my description box. But I just put them in a little Ziploc baggie there, and then I just put a little bit of antiquing wax and I spray some water, and I'm just kind of gonna zhuzh these around, get them all kind of stained there. Doesn't have to be perfect or exact. Remember, we're doing a farmhouse look here. Everything's kind of supposed to look salvaged. So, and this step would be completely optional. I just thought it kind of dressed it up a little bit. After you dump those out, I just dump them on a baby wipe. I pat them down with a paper towel or another baby wipe to get all the excess wax off of them. And now I'm just taking my heat gun and I will just kind of dry them off a little bit. Now you can space these out in any length that you want. You could even just put one on each of the 4 corners, would look cute. I kind of just went around all of the edges, kind of spacing them maybe like a 1/2 inch. I just kind of eyeballed it, and you can kind of see it's not exactly perfect, but that's okay. It doesn't need to be. So just know that. Now I have these florals that are from Dollar Tree. I just love this little, I'm not even sure what this is called. I should have looked at the tag, but I think it drooping over just really adds something to it. I love it. And then I have these 2 other little spring kind of purpley colored on the floral there, and I just thought those looked great. Now I thought the front looked a little bare, but this is completely optional. You would not have to do this. It's not bare enough that it's going to be like stark bare, but I decided to make a little sign to go on the top. So this is just a plank of wood from a pack that you get at Dollar Tree, and I'm just going to add some chalk couture stenciling to it. Now you certainly don't have to do chalk couture on this. That is just what I chose because I am fairly new to it and I am loving everything about it so far. But if you had a cutting machine, you could easily use that. You could use stencils, you could use rub-on transfers, water slide decals, print on tissue paper. There are so many options now to do different types of designs on things that you're not just kind of like cemented into one idea or out of luck if you don't have one particular way of doing things. This particular transfer came from Chalk Couture's monthly club that you subscribe to, and they send you a transfer every month. If you want more information about that, check my description box down below or just message me. I'll be happy to answer any questions. But I just took the word farm and sweet and did farm sweet farm with that adorable windmill. I thought that looked so cute. Now I'm just sanding around all of the edges, and I sand the front of that design because I want it to look weathered and worn out. Then I just take a baby wipe, put it on my finger, and get a little bit of antiquing wax and just kind of run it over all of the edges and all of the corners. Where you sand it off, I sanded off that paint that I had painted this with. That wood is just going to allow that wax to seep into it and give it that really aged look. And then I just take some hot glue and I just glue this onto the front. Now again, this step is completely optional, but I just really think it adds a lot to it. I think it turns out beautiful. I love how this looks. You can add a little thing on the back to hang this with if you wanted to even like staple some twine into it or something, or rope, or hang it that way, or just use it to prop up against like a backsplash in a kitchen or on a shelf somewhere. I love how this turned out. Please let me know what you think of this one down in the comments. I have this bucket from Dollar Tree and I think it's darling the way that it is, but when I got home, I realized that the handle was kind of coming off. So I just decided to take them both off because I didn't really know how to fix that really. So I kind of have an idea that I'm going to do for the handles, but first I'm going to take these little stickers that are just like these little raised bead stickers, and I'm going to run them around the top and the bottom. They're super easy to work with and you just kind of get your spacing there. They stick very, very well. So you kind of want to make sure when you stick them down that you know where you're sticking them. So they're a little difficult to kind of pull up once they're down, but you can see how easy they are. And if you have to, once you get to the other end and you need to take some off, you can just kind of pull them and they just rip apart. So fun. And what I'm going to do is we're going to paint over these, and so it will look good, I promise. Now, I think these buckets are so cute the way that they are, but you know, I'm here to kind of give you some inspiration to show you some different ways to decorate things. So I don't want you saying like, oh, the bucket was beautiful before, because I know it was, but this is kind of fun to make it match your decor a little bit more and make it more for you. Now, I'm just using my Crop-A-Dial tool, and I will link that in my description box down below to make those holes just a little bit bigger, because I'm going to use some rope to go through those after I get this all painted. So I just go through and I paint this. I actually did one coat of chalk paint here, and then I actually went out into my garage and spray painted it because those beads are a little difficult to get the chalk paint to stick to. Now, to give it a little detail so you can see that little raised area, I just take some elephant chalk paint, but you could use like mineral, or you could even use antiquing wax, and just lightly go over those beads, and that's just going to make them pop. They kind of blend in if you leave them all white and don't do this step here. It would be fine if you did, but this is the way you definitely notice them. And I like everything weathered and distressed. With what's left in my brush, I kind of just go over the middle portion of this cute little bucket here. I go up and down like the seam and everything, just give it kind of a little bit of an aged look, like it's had a plant in it and it's gotten a little bit dirty. And then I'm just going to tape off the end of my rope. This rope came from Dollar Tree, and I am just going to feed it through and tie it, and then I'll feed the other. You'll kind of see how I'm doing it here, and then just tie it off on both sides, just tying that very tight, and then I pull it against the pail there, the bucket, to make sure that it is tight, and then I will cut off the end. And you can see here that I've got that other side. I just decide my length, I cut it off and tie it, and I'll just do this on both sides to give it something cute, something a little bit different for the handle, especially since I had the broken handle on it. So this part would be completely optional, but I do like how it looks. It gives it a very farmhouse vibe. This plant is from IKEA. They fit perfectly in there. If you want them to sit up just a little bit, you'd put just a couple tumbling tower blocks in the base of it. But I think this turned out so cute, and it's perfect for every day. You could even embellish the front part of this if you wanted to. I kind of like the simplicity of it, leaving it like this. One thing I love to do is I love to find little glass pieces like this at the thrift store. Each of these pieces cost $1 or less for each one of them. And they are so, like, you know, that really detailed crystal. And I want to make some faux jadeite out of them. So I'm going to just clean them all up, remove the price tag, and wipe them all down. And then we're going to make them look like jadeite. The key to getting that faux jadeite look is to use this pistachio color by Krylon. It matches my jadeite almost perfectly. It is very, I'll show you a comparison in the end. I have a little picture of my faux jadeite with my real jadeite, and it blends in beautifully. So I just do a couple of light coats on each of these pieces. So I'll just remember, these are not going to be food safe after you do this. So I feel like I just want to say that and get that out of the way, but these look so good. And it's just a couple of light coats to get that really thick color that's on there, so you can kind of see. Now this butter dish, I did the inside, and then I ended up going and doing the outside as well. Now the key, you could leave it like this, but what really sets this apart and helps it match jadeite is to add a little bit of a sheen to it. And so to do that, I'm just using this clear glaze that's by Krylon, and I give a couple coats of this on top of that. And this is going to seal that paint, obviously, but it's going to give that really nice crystal clear, like shiny look to it that jadeite has. And here's just kind of a look after this is all dried, what it looks like. The color is not the best here. This is just in my garage, but you can see there's kind of that shiny sheen on it. I've got a little stuck there, but look at, I just think this turned out so pretty. So what I'm going to do now is just take these back into my studio, and I'm just going to clean up the tops that go to like the salt and pepper shakers and the little other items there, and just put those back on. Now you don't have to just do this on glassware. You can get this jadeite look on anything that you can spray paint really. I've done it on a few risers before. It looks really cute. This color that Krylon has is such a good color. Here are my pieces all set up here with their little tops and everything on there. I think this looks beautiful. I've even seen some people do a copper color on the top fixtures to kind of give a different color tone, which would be beautiful as well. But I really love this. Now here are these pieces mixed in with a couple of the original jadeite pieces that I have. You can see that the color varies on those pieces, and I think it matches beautifully. I have this little wooden box that was a planter box that a potted plant came in, and since the potted plant has probably died, let's be honest, but I'm going to make this over. I want everything today to be kind of white and chippy, fresh farmhouse with some greenery, and so I'm just taping off the rope handles because I do like those, and I am going to use Rust-Oleum's linen white chalk paint. I do like this chalk paint a lot. I use it on all of the furniture items that I end up painting. I am currently out of my Waverly white chalk paint, so I decided to pull this out and use it, and I forgot how much I really do like this. So if you are looking for a new type and you haven't tried this, I highly recommend it. So I'm just going through here and giving this not even a full coat. It's just kind of sparsely putting it on. I'm letting the wood show through. We're wanting this to be very chippy and very weathered looking, but I'm going to do all sides. I'm going to do the rim around the top as well, and then I will also go down about 1 inch at the top, so if you can see into it, you'll still see that white paint. So for the technique I'm going to use here, I actually picked this up from Rhonda over at the Distressed Princess, and I've never done this before, and I was so amazed at how well this worked out. So I'm going to print on tissue paper. So I just cut tissue paper small enough to tape on a regular size piece of printer paper. You actually want it taped like this very well around all of the edges. I will leave a link to this graphic down in my description box. It just came from the Graphic Fairy, but you just print as normal. You just feed the paper through just as normal so it prints on the side that your tissue paper is on. And I did want to just show you that the painter's tape does peel right off the tissue paper without ripping it very easily. And you can see that it's just, I mean, it looks great printed on this tissue paper. I decided to rip around the print, so that way when I put it on, I felt like maybe it would blend in a little bit more with the wood. So I'm not sure if cutting it would give it the same effect, so you could try either way, but I did just go through and delicately ripped around the graphic here, and I just put my finger there to stop it from tearing up in certain places. Now I'm going to center this on my box. And what I do first is I lay down some Mod Podge. And of course with Mod Podge, you go to pour just a little bit and like a ton comes out, right? So I just spread this all over the whole box, and I am using the matte Mod Podge. And I center this, I eyeball it. You can be as exact as you want on this. And I just lightly press it down with my finger to make sure that it is kind of down. There's no air bubbles, kind of rub those out, but I'm being very delicate to not rip the tissue paper. And then I take my Mod Podge roller that I recently got and I roll over the top of this. And guys, this totally made the difference. It looks like this is completely just printed onto the box. And I do roll over it really well a few times to make sure that is down. And then with the leftover Mod Podge on my sponge, I just go around and get the edges to make sure that it stays down. But look at how amazing this looks. I think that you can't even tell that it's printed on any type of paper and put on there. It looks so good. And if you don't have a Cricut, this is a great alternative. I will leave the link to the graphic down in my description box. I have a series of frames that I have picked up through thrift stores, flea markets, garage sales over the years, and so I'm taking 3 of them to do this project with. This one was already kind of a cream colored, but I wanted it to be more of a bright white. So I am going over it with the linen white chalk paint by Rust-Oleum. And I just go through and give the entire frame a really good coat of that to brighten it up. Then I just take a baby wipe, and you could use a tissue, anything, and just kind of rub off the raised area of this to kind of expose that through and look aged. Then I'm taking this pink frame. I picked this up at a thrift store years ago. It hung in my daughter's room for a while, but she's just kind of over the color pink now, so I'm gonna make it farmhouse. So I just give this a really good, it takes a couple coats to cover that pink. That pink was really dark and really bright. So I just go through and cover all of this with the Waverly, this is not Waverly, it's Rust-Oleum linen white. After I get the desired amount of coats of the white paint on, I take a baby wipe and I use some elephant chalk paint by Waverly, and I go through and rub it and dab it kind of on the raised areas of this frame. This is what's going to age and make this look weathered. And I just go through until I get it how I want that, light in some areas, darker in other areas. And then I go back in with the chalk paint and I just lightly brush over the top to kind of dull it down a little bit and make it look like it's kind of that layered look where it is kind of aged in the crevices and everything. And I just go over this and keep repeating the process until I get what I want. With this last frame, this frame is huge, guys. I don't know if you can fully get how big this is, but I had to zoom way out. But it is cracked in areas. The print is very faded and damaged. And so this is a very nice painting. As I was tearing this apart, this is so sturdy, but I had to rip everything out so I could get the print out of the middle. So I just kind of went to town and ripped the back completely off. And then I pried open the little prongs here so I could get the print out. You can see that the print is faded. It's got some permanent scuffs and marks on it. It's just not my style, so I decided that I'm going to try something else with it. So I do go over this frame. This also took several coats to get it to the desired white color that I wanted, but I just used the chalk paint. And then to age this one, I go through with my emery board and I sand all over, kind of on the raised edges, and then I will kind of go in on the flat parts and I will really kind of scuff it up a little bit. I really wanted this to look very, very chippy. I'm going for just that really chippy white look with all of my projects today. One of my daughter's books had been ripped and torn in several pieces, and so I kept part of it that was still salvageable, and I'm using that to cut out some little scalloped pieces. And what I'm going to do is Mod Podge these over the back of the print that was in the picture. So I start by just putting a line of Mod Podge down and kind of spreading that out. This is very simple, very basic. You just take each little scalloped piece and I'm going to place it down. And that way, and I just kind of go through in layers. I do like this row and then I move on to the next row and get it so it's completely covered. And then I kind of offset the next row. You can see me do that here. So I just lay another row of the Mod Podge down and then go in between the scalloped layers on that other edge. And I do this through the whole thing. I do go over the edges, as you can see on the sides and the top and the bottom, and I'll go through and cut those off once I'm done. And then after I get this all trimmed up, I do just slide it back into the frame and get it all pressed down in there. And you can kind of see what it looks like there. It just adds a little bit of texture element to it. I am so excited to put these frames in my house. I think they look so great. They're so farmhouse. I think that the chippiness on them is perfect, the aging and the weathering. I really do like how the pages that I cut the scalloped edges out look in the back of that big frame. It was rather empty to not have anything in there, and I feel like that was the perfect thing to add in there to keep it kind of that really simple, clean white look. So let me know if you guys have ever done anything with old frames like this down in the comments. I would love to know what you guys have done with them. I have this pack of wood slats from Dollar Tree. I think they come with 6 in a package, plus a couple of wooden boxes and then a couple of just wooden squares. So I'm just going to make a pillar, I guess, or a column, plant stand, whatever you want to call it. But I'm just going to make a rectangular box out of these wooden flat slats. I'm not sure really what you would call them other than that. Anyway, so you can just see I'm using a combination of wood glue to make it for a long-term hold and then some hot glue to give that short-term hold. And I am just taking a couple of dowels and I cut them into pieces to give a little bit more surface area for the glue to kind of adhere to. And that's just going to make it a little bit more sturdy and hold its shape a little bit more rather than just having the edge glued together. So I'm going to take the box here and I'm going to take the lid off and turn the lid upside down. And I'm going to glue the edge of the box and turn it over. This is kind of going to give us that little bit of architectural element on the pillar. So you can see I'm just going to glue that down. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other box. And then once I get that done, I'm going to take those flat square pieces and I'm going to glue the lid of the box to those. So you can just kind of watch closely what I'm doing here. So after I get those glued together and my rectangular box is pretty sturdy and dry, it takes about a half an hour to get it to a really sturdy point. Then I'm just going to glue each end of this to each little architectural end, I guess we'll call it, that I have made. And so you can kind of see it start to come together here. And I just kind of spin it because that glue does give you a little bit of working time to get it so it is straight and everything. And right now I'm not using any hot glue. I'm just using the wood glue because I'm going to set and leave this overnight just to get a really good hard cure to it. You do want to maybe have a wet cloth. I use some baby wipes around to kind of wipe that glue off because it does drip quite a bit. So after this dries, after a day, I go in with some paint. You can choose whatever paint color you want to paint yours. I wanted to go for a very rustic, kind of like, obviously farmhouse, but kind of just something that maybe you had found a piece of something from an old farmhouse or old barn or something that you had taken into your house to use as a plant stand. So I wanted to start with the white base and then go in and add distressing from there. So I give this 2 really good coats of my white chalk paint. Then I take my emery board and I am just going around every single edge, every single corner and sanding it really good. I even take each of those corners and give it kind of a more of a round shape to it. Then I take some antiquing wax and I just do my dry brushing all over it. I get a little bit heavier the further that I go, just kind of depends on how you want it. After I let that dry completely, I do go back in with some more of the white and dry brush over the top of that so it's not so harsh. And it kind of softens it. I did go in with a little bit of elephant chalk paint also to kind of give it another little dimension there. But you can see how it looks together here. I'm excited to put this with all of my plants and my little trinkets, different things, you know, just kind of style it really good. But I'm really happy with how this turned out, and for just a couple of bucks to get a really good looking, I didn't have to cut anything out of wood. I think it looks great. This particular DIY, you can use any type of sign blank that you have or anything. I got this at Dollar Tree. It's a cute little glow-in-the-dark sign, but I bought it with the intent that I was going to make it over. So I am just covering all sides and that flat portion, the front of it, all with some white paint. You can use chalk paint, acrylic paint, whatever you have, and in whatever color. So I have a little helper here. So my little boy was helping me make this sign. So that's whose hand you see, and they're kind of helping me out. So once I get this all the way done, I'm going to take some painter's tape and we're going to make some stripes on it. So I just lay my painter's tape down and then put one in the middle and then another. That's middle one's going to be my spacer. So it will come off and then I'll be able to place another one on top of that, as you can see what I'm doing here. Now I'm going to use the pounce method with some black paint. So I'm just pouncing up and down lightly with a little amount of paint right along the edge of the painter's tape to seal that edge. So you're going to have minimal like bleed through from the stripes. I don't wait for the stripes to dry completely. I let them dry a little bit, but I mean, while it's still kind of wet, I do peel up my tape. And then after it dries completely, I'm going to just distress this a little bit with my little file here. You can use a finger sander, whatever you have that you use. And then I have this sign from Dollar Tree from Easter time, and I really like the burlap fabric here that has the blessed on it. So I'm going to use that, and I'm going to make a little pocket on the front of this sign. So what I do is just tuck the little edges of the burlap up like this, and then I'm using some half beads to kind of look like some upholstery tacks or nail heads. And I do decide after I get this on here that I want to stain them or paint them. So I take a little bit of elephant chalk paint. You could just do whatever color. I just felt that the natural wood didn't really kind of give me the vibe that I was going for. And so I just kind of lightly try not to get it on my burlap and go over each of those little half beads. To get this on my sign, I'm just putting some hot glue on 3 of the edges. You want to leave the top portion open because we're making it a pocket. And so you're just going to put glue on the sides and the bottom, and then using whatever like silicone spatula or anything you have, because that hot glue does kind of seep through the burlap. You're just going to push that down and make sure that it is on really good. And then you just take some little floral picks, kind of cut them down, take them apart, put whatever you would like to inside of this little sign. I think this is adorable. I actually used this on a tiered tray and I think it turned out so cute. I am loving cutting boards right now, and they are all the rage. And I found this darling little decorative cutting board at Hobby Lobby when it was 50% off. So I paid $4 for it. I am not using this for food. It is strictly for decor purposes. And I have these cute little finials that I got on Amazon, and I will leave a link to those down in my description box, but we're going to use these as the feet. So I am staining them with just some antiquing wax, so that way they will match the cutting board. And depending on what cutting board you pick up or you're trying this with, you can paint your feet accordingly to kind of match, or stain them both to kind of be the same. So I just took that little leather handle off. I decided that I didn't need that, and I'll just use a combination of wood glue and hot glue and use my ruler, and I'm just going to space out where I am putting these feet so I can get them kind of as symmetrical as I can. One of the most common questions I get is about my rulers that I use. Guys, I did pick these up about 3 or 4 years ago at TJ Maxx or Home Goods, and I have not seen them since. But if I ever find anything close to this, I will definitely let you guys know and leave a link to them. But I'm just using this to make sure that I get those feet pretty well like on the same line, and that way it's not going to lean or anything when I place down this cutting board. But look at how absolutely darling this ends up looking with my little decor on here. This is so cute, and I mean really it just adds so much of a good element to lift these items up off your original surface. What do you guys think of this one? I went to a different Dollar Tree than I normally go to, and they had these cute little shapes like this. Now this, when it's sitting down, it looks like it's like a jewelry tray or something, but it actually has a little stand on the back that it's like supposed to be like a standing frame type thing. And I thought this was the perfect size to use this little farmhouse wreath from the rub-on transfers from Dollar Tree with. And I have a couple of these left hanging around, and so I thought I would to put the transfer on this. So I just cut that little wreath out, just careful not to disturb any of the rest of the transfer in case I want to use it. I just place it in there just to see if it fits. And then all you do with these rub-on transfers is you just peel the back off, and then you're just going to gently place it down where you want. You don't get many opportunities to like lift it up and place it down, so you want to make sure when you're placing it down you're kind of committed to that area. And then I just use a craft stick, and I'm just rubbing all the way around. You just want to make sure that you get all of the areas, the edges really well. just rub it everywhere and make sure that it's just going to transfer from that piece of plastic onto your design. Now, at one point I will go and I will lift this up right here and check, and I can see that it's not quite as rubbed on as I want. So I just go back in, press a little harder, go around it one more time, and then you'll just check it again. And you just want to lightly check it because you don't want to peel it off and have your transfer come back with you. So you just want to make sure that you check it a couple of times before you completely commit to peeling it off. And then when you do peel it off, you're just going to go in a slow motion because you want to make sure that everywhere, because if you get to a point that you're like, oh, that didn't transfer, you can immediately place it back down and rub it off. But look at how cute that looks. I just love this. Super simple and easy, and I think it's darling. Thank you so much for watching this mega video of these farmhouse DIYs. It was so fun compiling them together. If you guys liked a project from today's video, remember to like this video, subscribe if you're not and you would like to see more fun DIYs from me. Leave me a heart down in the comments. I would love to see how many hearts I can collect. As always, I would like to remind you to be safe, be smart, be nice, be happy, choose to have a good day because you are amazing. Thank you so much, guys. I'll see you next time. If you enjoyed the video that you just saw, here's another one that you might enjoy. And as always, remember to like and subscribe. Thanks so much for watching and have an amazing day.